I mean, but this is life, right? Like no one knows what's next.
Yeah.
We don't, right? And one of my favorite things about this is like the whole be present, live in the moment piece. Yeah, don't freak out about what's ahead of you. Don't overthink what's happened because it's just now. So we are, and this is awesome, right? You stay connected. I was thinking about the last time we saw each other was me borrowing GoPros from you for something we were shooting, like something we were filming, and I just did the old Facebook call out. We wouldn't have seen each other then for years. And you were like, yeah, bro, I got some stuff. And we met in a car park somewhere and I grabbed a bag off you and then I returned it to you. So I don't know when, but yeah. And that would have been years since we saw each other last. And then here we are again.
I can't remember when it was, but it's crazy because when I do look at everything that you've done, everything from your business coaching to filmmaking to now starting up your own AI company, they seem so different, bro. Like everything is so, they seem like they're worlds apart. And then you take off, the veil and you look at it and you're like, holy crap, everything seems to be rooted in these three common themes, like curiosity, sovereignty, and service. Am I far off the mark here? Or?
Yeah, nah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. I think curiosity is the biggest one for me. Yeah, I've got a book that I'm hoping to release soon about that as it relates to AI. But yeah, I think I've always held that at the core of everything that I've ever done, and often it's triggered my pursuits. So I'm innately curious, so being a coach makes a lot of sense because it's just steeped in asking questions of people, surfacing things that they might otherwise not want to share, and then going, oh shit, and having some of those moments. And then, yeah, from an individual sense, the sovereignty piece is something I've always held. I'd probably frame myself as a libertarian, really, from a political landscape perspective, but then someone who's very appreciative of all the sort of spectrum. But that comes down to like personal freedom, and have made some significant decisions around that in my life, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And yeah, I think then, service to others and to those that I have responsibility over and I love and all those sorts of things. Yeah, I love that.
Because another theme that keeps popping up is it seems like you have a healthy appetite for risk taking. Eh? And it was funny because one of your podcasts you mentioned that you are technically not qualified to do anything. And then I follow your trail back all the way back to your uni days. You study journalism, you figure it's not for you, you piss off overseas for a year, and you come back looking for, some sort of direction. You jump into consulting. A bit later, you jump and start your own business. From there, you go to filmmaking, and now you're starting your own AI company. Like, where does this courage come from? Can you walk us through this?
Okay. Well, I can walk through a timeline. Courage is an interesting word. I have often been blindly optimistic, and sometimes to my detriment. But I am, and probably will always be, a very optimistic human being. I kind of went a few different paths. I guess I was raised in a relatively sheltered environment, a very Catholic family, a very religious schooling environment. Leaving that, entering uni, was like one of those the world exists moments, probably. And I guess the step into a university life back then was just the thing that most people were directed to do, and you do it, and you pick a thing, and the thing might be the future for you. I, at the time, as we know, massive sports fan, and I was on a pathway to doing sports journalism and really immersing myself in that world because I loved competition and all things about it. And I was doing some commentary, I was on the radio and had a sort of little stint learning the TV side of things. And I guess the path was being set by the system at that point in time, until uni exposed there's way more than the sheltered, structured thing that you've existed in. Are you interested in that? And I went to Notre Dame, which is how I found NFL in Perth.
Yep.
And so then it was, a taste of that world, which was awesome. And then it was exposure to, I guess, thinking at a broader scale, because at Notre Dame you have to do ethics, theology, and philosophy courses. And I kind of distinctly remember the opportunity that presented to think probably further and deeper than I've ever thought until that point in my life. Because yeah, self-admittedly, I lived a very sheltered and protected upbringing because that's how my parents provided for us, and it was awesome, and I thank them for that. But it was this kind of like, whoa. And, you know, what am I now, 39. So we didn't really have smartphones and access to the whole wide world. The internet was very like, you know, research-based. You weren't exposed to everything quickly. And so for me, there was a fortunate aspect of that. And then there was the what's possible piece that university really showed me. And whilst I sort of went out of it and did pursue journalism piece for a little while, I quickly realized that was not for me. And so then it's like, well, what the hell is? Like, what are you going to do now? And so it was kind of a big moment in the kind of perspective shaping and shift. But if I just keep talking through the steps in this journey, I had a really serious car accident when I was, I don't know what age I was, early 20s. And it's the sort of accident that you kind of shouldn't walk away from in most circumstances, which was very catalytic to the rest of my existence. I mean, I'll tell the story if you want.
I like it because I remember that day at training.
Yeah.
Where you were T-boned and
So
we heard about it and we were like, oh, okay, it was just a normal
car
and then
accident.
you come to training, you're telling us, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah. And so, so at the time, I guess set the scene a little bit. I'd kind of figured that the journalism thing wasn't going to be my thing, and so I was like, I need to make some money. A friend of Katie's actually worked at the distribution center for Woolworths near the airport, which is basically their central hub for everything that reaches the rest of the state. Got an opportunity to go there and just do whatever job and drive around a little thing and put stuff on pallets type stuff. Again, I was and always kind of have been relatively capable, so was quickly able to start climbing a tree there, and make good money because you can work lots. And as a young person, you're like, yeah, this is cool. I was driving to work as I always do, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I was living in Greenwood at the time, so I had to drive quite a ways. It was there's no one around. You take the same route every day. I'm going through an intersection outside Warwick Shops, some people might know, which is just a kind of 4-way traffic lighted intersection. I had probably 6 months prior got a new car, which was a Subaru Forester, which at the time was like a stupid decision. I got the loan, all the things, yeah. As a young person, it was like, this is what you do. You're on a path, buy the car, get in debt. And so as I'm driving towards this intersection, the lights are green, cruising along, and I have that moment of realization that something's not right. And the realization was those lights are moving a lot quicker than they should to the left-hand side of my car. And so I've always been a fan of motorsports. And so in my head, it was like grip the wheel and relax everything because I just felt the impact was coming. And so then the next thing I know, I regained consciousness because we're pretty sure I lost consciousness. And I'm hanging sideways with my driver's side door facing the roof, and basically the front windscreen ripped off the car, and I'm probably 50 meters from where the impact happened down the road. And so it turns out this guy came, T-boned the back left of my car, which made it go and do like a bunch of flip spins and whatever and land down the road. He was in a Toyota Camry, and the engine block was where the dashboard was after the impact. And so I somehow managed to climb out of the car, and I see the aftermath, his car, and there's a Shell petrol station on the other side of the road. And I get out of the car somehow and run over to the petrol station. And then these two guys are running towards me and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But I just need to figure out what light was it my fault or his fault? And so I'm running to the petrol station because there was a guy filling his car up. And I run over, I'm like, mate, was the green light mine or his? Just to confirm that I wasn't the one in the wrong. And this guy's just standing there like, are you okay? Because I've literally just jumped out of this thing and walked away from it. And I walked back over, and the guy in the Camry was like the drunkest a person could probably ever be. Completely fine, probably because of that. And these other two blokes who'd been on a bender all night, who'd seen it all happen, kind of came over and were talking to me, and we're standing on the side of the road. Within a couple of minutes, an ambulance was there. They're basically talking to us all as though someone's still in my car. For those who may not know, I used to have a large afro. I'm 6'5". And so I just looked like I was one of the mates of these two guys that had been in a bender. Like, they just thought we were all together. And they were like, no, this is a really serious accident. Who was the driver of the vehicle? And I was like, it's me. And they didn't believe it. They checked, obviously, they knew in the car. I was just like, what the hell? So it was like, obviously, whiplash and a few things, but broadly, it was something that I probably should not have been relatively unscathed as a result of. Now, why that was such a catalyst moment for me was I didn't have a car anymore. I didn't have a loan anymore. I didn't have any debt anymore. And so the path I was broadly going down at that point in my life was changed dramatically. And so soon thereafter, and I mean, we'd already thought about traveling. I say we because Katie and I are now 20 odd years, just over 20 years together. We got together very young. We were like, well, why don't we use this opportunity to go travel the world? And that was truly a defining moment in my existence, like this further exposure to what the heck the world is. But that sort of story has been probably the biggest catalyst to what really could have been a normal life by most standards, and possibly could have just been consumed by the comfort that is provided by a decent job where you're climbing a ladder and offered the training and the management roles, and I had all of that with a massively successful company that still exists today, one of the biggest in this country. But yeah, a moment in time redirected everything.
Did not know the driver was drunk.
Mm.
I knew about the car accident. I knew how bad it was. Had no idea that the driver was drunk. And what an interesting turn of events, that everything you thought you wanted, you would be given, and it took something this drastic to alter the course, which essentially led you to where you are now.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
That's crazy. So what happened after you get back from your travels?
Yeah.
You had no idea what you were doing.
Nah, I mean, we went traveling and didn't know what we were doing, right? We were planning to stay away for as long as we could. The only two plans we had was a ticket to Egypt, which was where we were going to start, and then a Eurail ticket, which at the time meant you could go anywhere you wanted all over Europe for 3 months with one train ticket. And it just got you on and off whatever train you wanted whenever you wanted. They were our plans. And so then that turned into an amazing Egyptian experience, the 3 months all over Europe, and then some time in the UK at the end of that with a plan to go to the States, but not really knowing what we wanted to achieve, but realizing because all over Europe, there's heaps of Americans like us traveling, we now had this like path across the northern states of America and Canada where we could just meet people. And so that became the next part, which was fly to New York, go see our first mate up in Boston, second mate, because in New York we had some mates. We bought his mum's minivan and drove through Canada and North America in the middle of winter, full snowstorms in the works, because we were free to do it, and it was epic.
What was Kate doing at the time?
So Katie's always been a nurse.
Yeah.
And I say always been a nurse, but like her mum was a nurse. Her best friend's mum and like close family, she's always been kind of exposed to that space. She went to uni and became a nurse, and she worked with adults for a little while, but then went back to so her mum was a midwife, and she went back to the neonatal ICU where you look after premature babies. That's been her career, and it's I always talk about it as a calling, not a job, because you need to be a very, very special type of human to deal with what happens in that environment. And so, so that's always kind of been, for me, that's our constant. That's the antithesis to my risk taking. Yeah, someone just there who is amazing at what they do. It's a calling, not a job. It's so necessary in this world. But then at the same time could generate decent cash if we ever needed it, because I'd gone off on some stupid, crazy adventure that hasn't worked out. So that was a thing that she could step away from and then come back to as a result of the traveling decision when we were young.
Her appetite for risk, is it as healthy as yours?
No. No. I mean, we're pretty different humans, and we've always been pretty different humans. She's got a fascinating personal story that maybe one day she'll share with the world. But it's she wouldn't stand in front of people and speak to them comfortably. I would right now, if you were like, we've got to go and talk to 2,000 people about something, it'd be like, oh, what's the something? And so, different in that sense. But again, that whole argument that opposites attract is probably proven by the two of us and when we met. But that said, like our friend Lynn, who got us together.
Definitely a tale of trust.
Yeah, our story.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
100%.
In a time when divorce is such a norm.
Yeah.
Not that we're counselors or anything when it comes to marriage, but when divorce is such a normal thing and such a usual occurrence, like almost everyone you meet is either about to go for a breakup, has come out of a breakup, and then all that stuff. The fact that you have a partner in crime that spans 20 years who trusts your crazy habits and just how insane, how good.
Lucky.
What a blessing as well.
We're very aware how fortunate we are to have each other and to have been able to meet as young as we were, and how challenging it is for people to have that now, because the world is so different to when we first met. But it's not to say it's that different in that it was still hard to meet people. It was still challenging to find someone that maybe was going to be that forever. Probably a bit easier than now, but we are really, really, really blessed to have, I guess, been compatible from the beginning. And I know both of us were, like we went on our first date and then it was like, cool, are we together? And it was like, yep, okay. And then we went traveling, I don't know, maybe it was like a year-ish later together for a whole year around the world backpacking and with a couple of my good mates. But that was like, okay, cool, great, this is it. Like there's never ever been a moment in our lives when we're like, this isn't it. There's been some moments, but not to the like, to the probably the level or the edge that so many people feel like they're pushed in the modern world. And I'm very, very blessed because of that. Like very much appreciate this is not the norm now. Yeah.
Do you think part of that does stem from your mother's advice about waking up every day and just tackling, starting it off in a state of gratitude
100%.
to avoid that jealousy and envy?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think just having mum's words echo in your ears, and so you come across someone like Katie, and it's like, whilst everybody else is looking for the next shiny thing, you're looking at the gem that you found,
100%, a beautiful way to say it. And like I always talk about gratitude in a lot of what I do, because again, it's this sort of opportunity to remain present consistently that facilitates. It's facilitated by that gratitude, as opposed to regret, as opposed to hope and want, like these kind of traps that are anything other than right now. And so, I think that is, it's probably a big part of how I've gone on this journey that I've been on, where there's opportunities constantly presented to you, and if you are remaining present in those, as opposed to like overthinking or in either way, or regretting, you then have an opportunity to embrace them and act on them and do something with them. So yes, obviously grateful for mum and for dad in all that they've done for us.
We'll come back to mum and Katie in a bit.
Yeah.
With the I just wanted to sort of finish this segment off with the risk taking.
Yeah.
With all that you've done, and I'm asking this from a personal perspective, one of the things I've struggled with building up a tier is I'm constantly aware that I do not have the credentials that would warrant anyone to want to sit down with me. And so I'm always faced with this imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Then I look at the shit you've done, raising millions of dollars for films, for companies, just going into an entire new industry without any qualifications. Like, is imposter syndrome something you dealt with early on? Did you manage to tackle it? Is it something you do deal with? And if you've managed to get past it, what would you say to someone like me? And just imagine you're talking to thousands of people like myself.
Like, no one knows anything broadly. Like, we are very, very similar. One of my things early on, and I don't know if this was someone that someone shared with me or something that I was connected with, like, does not matter who is sitting opposite you, who holds an opinion of you, what someone thinks or shares, they eat, sleep, and shit just like you do. Every single day. And so we are fundamentally, boiling down to it, humans. And so I've always appreciated perspective, skills, expertise, all those sorts of things. But I think I've often seen those not as traps, but as often restrictions to go beyond what that bubble facilitates. And so for me, no, I've not really ever struggled with imposter syndrome. I've always looked at it as an opportunity to try to learn from or to understand more, and probably never pushed back against the fact that someone may know more than me. And instead of fearing that or being annoyed by that, because I'm curious, can I learn from that? Can I lean into that human and go, what is it that you know that I don't, that I can upskill on quickly? And so I think for me, the kind of, the whole I'm afraid because somebody thinks this or maybe better at me than, or whatever, like the fastest way to limit human potential, basically. And so when I say, like, I'm not qualified to do anything I've ever done, it's because a lot of people still think you got to have all these letters behind your name, you got to have all these degrees and all this sort of stuff, because that's kind of our societal structure at the moment. And I push back against that because you have this abundance of information available to you. That access to information is accelerating beyond what humans could ever think because of, say, AI and the prevalence of its capacity. And so everything's changing as a result of that. And I guess the kind of clear line in the sand here is, like, don't claim to be an expert when you're not, right? Don't go and say, I'll do your surgery or I'll do this, because you can't. But can you learn about how that person does that, what skills they bring to it, about the human body in a way that lets you do something that is, like, powerful, viable, rewarding, valuable to others. And this is what's possible now, right? You got a podcaster who knows the human body better than doctors, and has experimented with, I don't know, peptides for 2 years, able to probably talk to that technology and that offering better than anyone in the market, but they've never gone to school for it. They're not a scientist. So if we just shoot that person down, you're literally, like, you're doing yourself a disservice to start with. But humanity as a whole is starting to do itself a disservice because it traps us in this kind of definition of knowledge, which I think is just changing completely. Now, I'm going on a tangent here, but my big thing is we all have access to so much, like so much. If you have an interest, pursue it. If you want to talk about that interest, do so, right? Who gives a shit what anyone else thinks? It's your journey, it's your path. Where I draw the line is, if you want to spin around and become the messiah to anyone that wants to listen or will give you time on the back of that knowledge, that's where things fall apart. Share it, consume others, listen, respond, debate. That's where we're challenged probably as a society right now.
Yeah.
But that's where you need to sit, in a space of, interest, curiosity, all those sorts of things, but not ever with the perspective that someone else should be able to knock you down because they just don't think what you think is right.
Yeah, good. Cheers. Like I said to you before, every time, I think there's only a few people that I'm actually doing this. And one of them asked me, was like, oh, what makes you pull it off? And like I said, it's like, brother, I am operating on the delusional fumes of self-belief that I can pull this off. I was like, don't ask me where it comes from. I don't know. I was like, but every time I've hit that wall of imposter syndrome, it lasts maybe a couple of seconds and I just send it.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think this is the thing for me with, say, coaching, with the coaching work I do, which usually is, one-on-one with someone running a business, because that's what they often face, or that's what they often get challenged by. And it's not even imposter syndrome, it's just the unknown, right? If you're growing a business, you are always going to hit another step where you are unfamiliar in your role, especially as a leader of that organization. If you remain in that role, you're going from doing to probably managing, to then managing a manager, to then being a true boss with like layers in between all of those, but you're trying to like evolve as a human and all this stuff. And that's bloody challenging for someone to navigate, usually on their own. And so for me in a coaching capacity, it's this kind of like conversation, it's this space to hold where someone allows themselves to be like, this is shit. What am I going to do about it? Or here's my opportunity and potential, but I'm stuck over here. What am I going to do about it? So that's why I love that opportunity to converse.
I really want to pick your brain with this business coaching stuff.
Yeah.
I dare say you've been in boardrooms, you've dealt with businesses of all sizes. But I think the audience that this sort of content's going to reach will be more on a micro level. So your solopreneurs, what is the common thing that you see, the bottleneck, the obstacles that a lot of small businesses, individual like solopreneurs face that you've come across in your line of work?
Probably the ability to sell themselves, sell the product. I don't mean like frame it all and get it all ready. I mean like that actual capacity to say to somebody, here's the value that I offer you that we should transact for you to realize. And it happens in so many different ways. But I'd say that's probably where most people, especially in that space, struggle. And it's usually linked to a lot of what we just talked about. It's linked to this, self-worth piece, the confidence piece, that person's going to immediately say no. Like none of that's going to get you where you want to go. The first film I was involved in, it was to assist with capital raising. And I get asked that question, like, how do you handle with the no's? It's like, you expect them. Like, I'm trying to raise money for a film. That's a crazy venture. It might work, but it might not. We're very transparent about that. And so I'm probably going to get 1,000 no's before I get one yes. So be ready for that. And if that's the case, then you need to like put a whole lot of work in to get there. And you're refining how you're communicating, all that sort of stuff. But it's a crazy risky venture. Whereas if you're selling, marketing to someone who needs marketing, like be confident walking in that door. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in the value. Like understand, structure all of that in a way that means you don't have to have 1,000 conversations. Yeah, and that's probably the thing that I see most people struggle with. It's not like I've got all this great looking stuff and a website and I'm going to pay some Google ads or whatever. It's like the physical point at which you have to convince another human being that there's value in that transaction.
Like that. P, what about the opposite way? When it comes to these to the small players, is there a common trait that you find amongst the ones that manage to pull it off? Is it psychological? Is it structural? What's the one thing they all seem to share in common?
I think there's a motivation piece, like a self-motivation piece maybe, where the people that I see drive the most success themselves, like as individuals, are the ones capable of like, I have to get up today and do the thing.
Yep.
And as consistency, it's the typical stuff about anything that we do in life, but it's so easy to be like distracted, to go off path or to think this other thing or to listen to somebody who's like, oh, this is what you should do. And then just lock on and do that. And it's got nothing to do with what you actually should be doing. And so you either combat all of that by just going every day, like hard, or you combat it with clarity of strategy and direction and where we're going. And so I'd say the people that I've either worked with or see succeeded the most have either one of those two things. Like they know where they want to get to and they stay that path despite the distraction or the challenge, or they're like me, which is probably like proper ADHD brain, which like new opportunity but the get up and go and actually work all the time is the thing that gets you where you want to get to. Yeah. So probably those two things. And I'll add one more layer, which is probably patience. Nothing happens overnight, ever. And so all the success that you see someone have that feels like, oh wow, they were there yesterday and now they're here, never happens overnight. As much as the world wants you to make you believe that, like the patience that's required to get to where you might want to be getting to is more immense than you could ever imagine in the world of solopreneurship, running a business, any of that sort of stuff. I think it's Gary Vee who talks about this a lot. Like, you have time. If you're like 40, you have time. Yeah? Like, it's crazy how much time we actually have and how much time we squander because it's so easy to do so.
So hyper-focus, bit of courage. In essence, just send the fucking thing. Just send
100%.
We'll go back to Mom for a second here.
Yeah.
With that advice, I can imagine that someone who wakes up, who takes on board that advice and lives it as a creed, to wake up in a state of gratitude, you can't help, a byproduct of waking up in that state is to develop empathy and all those wonderful qualities. If we go back to, we're just going to moonwalk our way back a little bit here to the longest flu in history of the 2021s.
Indeed.
How do you sit down there with business owners who had to make these hard decisions? And from the business side, people understand. We have to cut overheads. We have to make, for this business to survive. But as a family man yourself, as someone who wakes up in a state of gratitude, who's developed this empathy, this state of service, how do you sit there and where do you take off the hat, to adopt that ruthless decision making that has to be done?
I mean, in a business, it is very difficult to succeed if you don't have that ruthlessness as a part of your analysis of what's happening. And it's because if things are not going well, they're really not going well from a dollars and cents perspective. So whilst there is often and always kind of that empathetic perspective I hold with the person in charge and their role and their responsibility, everyone still has a family to feed, a life to lead, those personal things that you're talking about attached to their decisions. And I would say it was probably one of the most challenging times for organizations that had probably heart-led leaders, because they wanted to let their people work from home. They wanted to let, the extended leave options that were required, there was all this pressure applied. And whilst, yes, the government was supportive of that from a dollars and cents perspective as well, and trying to help organizations, especially the small businesses at the time, support their people, it was not commercially viable to keep the workforces that you had and to keep, it just wasn't. When you look at a business and the balance sheet, and you look at the P&L, and that number is either very low or negative, you've got to make hard decisions. And so you want to be empathetic with that person, but you also want them to be able to still maintain some future success. We were sheltered here, massively sheltered, right, compared to others around the world in terms of its true impact on that part of the community. But yeah, it's really, really challenging weighing up what is effectively a binary decision when it comes to ones and zeros with wanting to protect and support your people. And I think for me personally, we are about to experience that at a scale we can't comprehend because of what's coming to just the broader, especially Western economic landscape. And yeah, that kind of COVID experience was, quite isolated in some circumstances. It was quite direct and blunt in others, in parts of the world where, restaurant dining was completely banned and all this. That's literally the decimation of industries and people. But if you go back to any of those locations right now, a lot of them, the Phoenix rises, right? People have this resilience and this drive and this want to build something still. And so they will have the same sort of scene pop up, or other people take up the reins. This is life, right? This is this crazy journey that we're all on. And sometimes, you face the sort of unfortunate challenge. And as a business owner, you've got crazy tough decisions to make when that happens. And at the moment, you are already seeing the same, trickle through, I think, into Australian society. But around the world, business leaders are having to make really interesting decisions at the moment because they see the human being less valuable to them than the tool. And so when we really start to extrapolate that, what happens?
Your blog about the paraphrase here, but the age of the specialist coming to an end.
Yeah.
That this is the age of the generalist,
Yeah.
and I think more and more people are starting to get on the same page when it comes to the economic landscape. That this is indeed the age of Jack and Jill, and you have to make certain adjustments. You know, the things that were laughed at before, things like personal branding and developing high agency and stuff like that. These are going to become a real necessity in this new world that's emerging. You know.
Yeah.
Shahid Bolton.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he said something really interesting when he was talking about the chemistry of resistance. And he said that a people capable of revolution must first be capable of imagination.
Mm.
And one of the things you've said before is that creativity is the coordination of chaos. And you're a very critical thinking person, you know, and how much of that creativity contributes to your critical thinking?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. I used to joke when I was doing the film thing, which I'm not pursuing as much anymore, if at all, that I wasn't the creative person in that environment, and I'd always get pushed back, especially from one of my business partners. I think it's an absolutely essential piece to human existence, and I think there's this like one can't exist without the other, right? And I think it's interesting because my definition of that, especially as it relates to chaos, is you're never going to be able to navigate that chaos without the ability to think just a little bit differently. Yeah. And there's all the, all the, say, military stuff, which is a really good example of this, where you make the best possible plan, right? But you go into battle, that first bullet goes, everything's out the window. And so the only people that thrive there, the only people that succeed there are those that have that capacity for creativity. I mean, in that environment, it's literally life or death. Yeah. In modern warfare, it's the creativity to build a drone out of a cardboard box, right? With a weapon attached to it that just goes and hunts a human. Like, that's horrific creativity. Yeah. In a basketball game, right? What's the crazy creativity that someone needs to do with their body to tip the ball in the last 2 seconds of a game or whatever it might be, that is just, you cannot plan for this stuff. Yeah. So for me, that chaos that isn't familiar to a lot of people because they're so regimented in their routine and structure, is scary, terrifying, odd, different. And therefore the creative gene, I don't know what it is, within us, is never tested, required, called upon, and just fades away. And so then this is where, the stress and the pressure and the like all the things that people experience now, in my view, come from this mass reduction in our need for the use of creativity to navigate any chaos, because everything is so comfortable. And so for me, it's like I seek that. It's on my phone background, right? Like, chaos is an opportunity. And that is where I would argue I am creative, but not in the typical definition, right? Because we all think, oh, cool, you can draw something or paint something, or that's creativity. It's like, no, it's the ability to like look through all this insanity around you and pull something together, hopefully that has value to you, people around you, whatever, if that's a business sense. But maybe has value to society, right? And the future of like humans and stuff. So yeah, that's the balance between those two.
That's yeah, I like that. It's creativity, imagination, almost can become the enemies of compliance.
Yes, well said.
And it takes a certain level of imagination to be able to see beneath the layers of propaganda and controlled information and things that are keeping people bottlenecked in the structure that you just spoke about. It's your ability to think outside the box, to step outside the square. Did that help you make that decision? You and Kate make the decision for homeschooling Amy, or?
It's a good question. I think I would never have sent my kids to school if I was in a position to not. Me and Katie have always been on a similar path, but at probably different stages of the journey. I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I've always kind of explored strange esoteric thinking for a long time. I don't think like probably most humans do about the world around us. And she has, and would probably happily admit this, being like a happy participant in the system. COVID really changed that. I'm just going to drink some water, one sec. A happy participant in the system. COVID changed that probably for both of us more than anything, because we made the decision not to do what the government told us to do. And so at that point in my journey, I was already extremely skeptical, shall we say, of the current societal structure benefiting humans forever. Not that's possible with any societal structure, but I was like, this isn't trending well. And so when everything kicked off, my, I guess, skepticism and curiosity quickly led me to a point of view that set out what would happen over the next little while pretty sort of well. And I started sharing that with her and others in my family. And then when it ultimately came to make decisions about what you do with your own body, it was a very, very challenging time. But, ultimately we both made the same decision around that. And she was effectively let go from her job as a result, and obviously not allowed to participate in society in many ways for a period of time there. But it really kind of catalyzed, not you're on your own here, but if you don't do what you're told, you are not one of us anymore. And I think that was a point in our personal journeys and our kind of journey as a couple where alignment was really cemented. And so when we were looking at or talking about homeschooling probably a few years ago, largely because of Wes's challenges, it was not ever out of the question, but because of the way our kind of family dynamic is structured, it was going to fall on her to hold the role of teacher. And so that's a huge challenge to somebody, to ask somebody to undertake.
Sorry, Josh, before we get into this,
I
think this is, I want to spend just a little bit of time with the structure for Amy.
Okay.
Because like I said before, we sat down,
Yeah.
there's so many parents out there that want to do exactly, this,
Yeah.
because they have the same sort of idea in regards to the traditional system.
Yep.
And if you could just spend a little bit of time just explaining just the structure of how it works.
Right now?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So how we homeschool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could just give a little blueprint, just like moms and dads, if you're listening.
Yeah. Well, for us, at the moment, it's Amy and Katie. My mum helps on a Monday. Our approach has been trying to understand how to provide her as close to what the current curriculum offers or will require of a kid to be up to scratch. We use AI quite a lot, more from an assistance perspective when it comes to lesson planning and these sorts of things, because Katie's not a teacher and wasn't trained as one. And so we basically, I set up a Claude environment with all of the curriculum for year 4 in Australia, and then interviewed Amy and asked her what she likes, what she doesn't like, what sort of things she likes to learn through versus doesn't, all that sort of stuff to understand what interests her, and designed an AI brain, which is what these things are, Claude project, with all that context, which now allows Katie to go, all right, what are we learning about? I want to learn about geography. Can I get a worksheet about X, Y, and Z thing that she's meant to learn? And then they go on excursions. They, learn about other countries using YouTube channels. They do this hilarious thing now where they travel in a plane and they choose what class they're in, economy or business class or first class, and it's just around the house, and Amy gets to choose, and then that's where they travel. They go traveling to different parts of the world and then learn about them. So the structure is not rigid. It's not defined. It is what else required in a week or a month for us to achieve. We both still work. She works a couple of days a week, where my mum helps out. And probably the earliest thing that was a challenge was like Amy's being removed from her friendship groups. You know, year three finished, four-ish plus years with all these kids that are her friends. And so the biggest challenge, particularly for Katie, was like, she's not going to have a friend. And it's like, no, there's like groups and activities and all this sort of stuff. And so that was probably the thing that we battled with the most, is like extracting her from that kind of network. But our goal was this innocence preservation piece where she was being exposed to stuff at school, even though it was a religious private school, that a 9-year-old kid shouldn't be exposed to, in our opinion. And so that was a big part of the decision. And so then now there's like every Wednesday, big group near our place where all these homeschooling families get together. And within a few weeks, she's made a handful of friends, and Katie's made a handful of new mum friends that think so much more like we do right now. And so there is now this growing network of people that we are now a part of, that is a community of humans that you wouldn't even know exists if you just go to school and participate in that community of humans. And this is not to say either is better or worse. It's just that we evolve in life to find people that we are aligned to and that we probably prefer to spend time with. And so right now, they've got that. And Amy has these like really awesome core friendships evolving. And so you look at it and you're like, this is amazing. This was a phenomenal decision. And it wasn't an easy one, but it wasn't hard either when you start, because you get exposed to like what's around you and you realize really quickly that there's so much available to you when you're doing this. It's not you're stuck at home every day teaching your own kid whilst trying to like run life. You've just got an abundance of opportunity to give them experiences and educations. I got a video sent to me a few weeks ago of Amy using a belt sander at like an art class. And she was making a sword and it was nuts. It's like, what? And this is every week. There's like an almost full day class that this guy runs with all sorts of things that you would never think of 7 or 8, 9-year-old kids doing in, you know, modern society, that she's now getting exposed to. And, you know, like I got home that day and I'm like, hey man, I got a video of you using a belt sander. And she's like, yeah, whatever, I can use belt sander. Like the confidence it breeds in them is fascinating. So yeah, don't know if that's answering your question, but for us, there was this trepidation, especially for Katie, because it's such a massive change. It's like a paradigm shift to the kind of freedom that you have when your kids go to school as a parent, and you can hang out more and do these sorts of things. Then all of a sudden, if you make the decision to extract them, it's like, well, they're there with you always. And if you don't have that external support, then it's even harder. But I guess my pushback on a lot of this is we live in a place where people, like, I mean, our current government wants your child in daycare from like 3 months old, if they can. They're like, we'll help you put your kid in daycare so you can get back in the workforce. It's like, what if I want to raise my kid? But it's so challenging now because shit's expensive and they've got no plan to combat that. So you have to keep participating in that workforce to exist. Therefore, you don't get to raise your kid. And so therefore someone else is. But then is that an indoctrination station from day one? And does that lead them into a system that is turning them into a drone? Like, what is all of that? When in reality, you talk to most parents and it's like, I'd love to spend a whole bunch of time with my kids. But maybe I'll get an afternoon or an evening. Maybe we'll get some weekend stuff. We go on holidays 4 weeks a year. And my big thing is like, I get that this is how society works right now. Like I do. And I get that heaps of people are probably really comfortable in that and participating in that society. I was always challenged to be one of the people participating in that way. It just never sat with me. And so it was another big part of why I've pursued doing my own things, successful or otherwise, trying to structure life around family and presence, especially when the kids were born, especially when they were kind of young. Because for me, that is time you never get back. And it's something that is so easily lost nowadays. And possibly, I'm not an expert here, the reason a lot of these divorces happen, the reason a lot of families are breaking down, the reason we have this like probably epidemic of mental health issues in kids that are way too young to even know what the fuck depression is and yet no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, I want to. I'm glad you brought up the Amy's joining a community and academia, because I was going to ask. I know for myself, and probably a lot of people, we develop our social currency on playgrounds. I'm learning how to conflict resolution, navigate different personalities, and I was always curious as how does a homeschool child learn how to do this without the environment to practice? And you've just answered that question by saying there's actually an entire tribe out there who are doing the same thing. And so until you put up the bat signal, you're not going to be able to find your people.
100%. And I'd probably challenge that kids are able to learn that in school now, because the environment that I see and the conversations I have, 80% of teachers I would talk to right now don't want to teach. They're struggling. My friend who's a principal at a school told me it's just glorified babysitting.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, you just said that? This is last year when I'm trying to explore what we should do around schooling. And he's like, yeah, man, there's so many of them. Like the teacher has so much responsibility. They are effectively parenting without the ability to discipline, because you can't discipline kids in school anymore. And so what you've just described around, well, they need to be in the playground and learning and doing all this sort of stuff, that's like 45 minutes of their day, maybe, right? And it is now a heavily policed 45 minutes of their day, because you're only getting to go to this particular program once a week. And if one person's doing the wrong thing, everyone gets punished. And it's a fascinating environment. Once you ask the questions, talk to your kids about it, learn what they're experiencing, versus, I think in my view, like the freedom of just go and explore something. It's the childhood a lot of us had that our kids can't access.
Yep.
It's very difficult for them to access that for so many reasons. And so it's interesting to kind of consider it from different perspectives where most people can't, because it's just the only one that they hold. And I guess for me, when me and Katie were having these conversations, it was always like, yeah, but there's going to be those opportunities. She's going to get those chances. She's going to make those other friendships. Might just take a little bit of time. But it is nowhere near, in my view, the kind of risk profile attached to what I see so many other parents dealing with once their kids get to 10, 11, 12 plus, and exposed to stuff that like you've got literally no control over, that will influence their like being forever. And that's crazy.
Yeah. You have mentioned it before, the personal cost to Katie's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
How's she doing? With it?
I would say probably a way better than she thought she would be at this point of the year. I think, it was a big call. It was a massive call, and we navigated the challenges that are attached. And it's, connected to it is her mum is got a terminal dementia diagnosis. My dad has got Parkinson's, and we have my mum who's capable and able to help us at the moment, which is amazing. But you feel isolated when it's just you being the person that's raising the kid, in that sense, like being the teacher of that child. And I think at the beginning of that journey, when you're making that decision, especially as the parent who has that responsibility, you probably just feel like, holy shit, it's just going to be all on me. And that's probably such a massive part of people's reason to not make the decision to do it. Whereas I was like, there are others. You are not alone. There are lots of others. And so then, now that the decision's been made, now that she's made these relationships, now that Amy's getting friendships, now that her learning is excelling far beyond what she would learn in a curriculum at year 4 level, it's now like, why would we ever go back? Yeah. So that, and now we are the catalyst, as you often are, to others asking these questions, whether it's within our family, whether it's the broader friend group. And that's awesome, because hopefully we can show an example of what's possible. And if it does, suit someone and their lifestyle and helps them and their kid, then by all means, I'm stoked that we can contribute to that.
Wesley keen?
I think he's getting keener.
Yep.
Yeah. he doesn't probably know what it is at 7. He's a bit like, yeah, but his myriad of challenges that he's overcome in his life, he's a resilient dude, yeah. And so he'd probably stick it out if that was what was required of him. I think the challenge with that decision is then you've got the two of them and the dynamic of siblings, the comfort that is Katie and Amy, which is like a really cruisy, easy, she's, whereas you've got this dynamic of a kid that's full of beans and is stubborn and all the things coming into the mix. So that's the next thing we'll have to navigate if and when we make that call. Yeah, we'll see.
Who does Amy take after? Because just on the things she says, school sucks. Do you know, I think I'm going to just go use this same. It'll be like, who does she take after?
Well,
because there's a healthy appetite for risk taking.
Well, no. So she's a mini Katie. Yeah, she's a mini Katie, and that's awesome. Like she's actually struggling a lot with like self-confidence and fear and a lot of these sorts of things at the moment. And so we're working on that with her. And that can be because of many things. And we've had an interesting journey with both our kids because of, what you need to give a kid that has disability, and then the impact that has on their sibling can be really significant. And at the time, you don't realize the significance of it. It manifests in different ways down the track. So she can be, and I think she will be, a very confident human. And we're working hard to help her realize that. But at the moment, she's got some fun things she's navigating. Yeah.
That's crazy. So confident in so many other ways. And then in other areas of life, just...
Yeah, it is. It's, so, she'll now get up and, do a reading at church in front of hundreds of people. But then, for her at the moment, the challenge is not being around us. So she has like a separation anxiety challenge. And so that's what we're trying to work through. But yeah, she still has these kind of the other confidence components that are awesome.
I am interested in this part. All your roles you've had, film producing, coaching, company founder, have they made you a better parent, or has being a parent made you better at your business? Because in both cases, you're giving guidance to people, and that that requires a lot of patience, great communication skills, empathy, understanding. Which has made you better at?
I wouldn't say I'm an excellent parent. I don't think it's possible to be an excellent parent because it is you literally don't know what tomorrow will bring. I think I find it easier to operate in the business world, for sure. I think I have more control over that world. We've had probably, we had about 5 years of like horrific sleep, and it was triggered by Wes and his struggles to sleep. And so there's like a period of our lives where it's like a haze. What the fuck happened? Because we were just surviving. And so then you now get through that to this point where we probably are in the best space we've been, and you can start to see where being a great parent is possible again, because you're in a like more healthy and capable mindset to invest in them. And so, I don't really ever have regret. It's just reflection. And so you kind of look back on this and you think, well, were there points in that journey where turning to others and leaning on others would have lent a different perspective to what we were trying to achieve? But you can't beat yourself up, because it's like you feel like this chaos is not like any other chaos that someone navigated. And then the beauty of small community and just friends, close friends and family, it's like, well, no one in that circle has experienced feels like is experiencing what we're currently experiencing. And so we've gotten to a point now probably where we're very accepting of how we navigated that journey, but we're aware of how that impacts both of our kids. And so right now we are investing as much as we can in helping not correct course, but again, lay a phenomenal foundation for both of them to be like really successful humans, despite whatever challenge the world throws at them. And so I think right now, I think it is not as challenging as it's been to be a parent, but it is still, like, you can't explain that to someone who doesn't have kids. And to be honest, the business world isn't even close to raising a human.
Yep.
Because you can just walk away from those consequences if you need to. You can, share the load, all that sort of stuff, right? Whereas being a parent's just the two of you, sometimes just one of you. And by God, I commend single parents, because it's like nothing else.
Yeah, we'll come back to the family in a bit. I want to talk about Howll AI.
Yeah.
This is, as I was mentioning before, I when you first shared it, I didn't really get it. I thought I did, had no idea. Then I used Notebook LM, and the penny dropped. And if you could just pretend this was a channel AI for dummies, just explain sovereign AI to us, please.
Yeah, cool. So I think AI is the wrong word right now. So it's the easiest way, or it's been the easiest way for us to frame this new technology, so everybody kind of broadly understands what it is. AI, artificial intelligence, is actually right now a thing called a large language model. A large language model is effectively a file that contains almost the entirety of human knowledge. Think of it like a zip file. And then someone builds a little layer of software or a chat environment right above all of that knowledge that lets you ask questions and get answers. Now, most people use it like it's Google because it's the thing it feels most familiar to. We'd log into a browser, there's a little chat window in Google, ask a question, get an answer. You can do that with a large language model, but it doesn't actually know what truth is. So the way that this zip file with all this knowledge generates a response to your question is through complicated mathematics. But that maths is effectively probabilistic, so it's a guess. So this tool that you ask a question of looks at your question and goes, okay, I think you've just asked me who is the King of England. The word king is a really significant word in that question. England is probably secondary to that. I'm going to weight those as the highest elements in the maths I'm going to do to try and figure out where in all of my knowledge I can respond effectively to the King of England. And it probably surfaces Charles. But if you put in 1802 at the end, it changes the entirety of that equation for it to then go and find from its knowledge an answer to that. Now, this system of maths to generate an answer has fundamental flaws in accuracy. So a lot of people are using it like Google and thinking it's just got truth and it knows everything. Where in reality, it has been trained on terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of information that now sit in this little file that we can talk to. But it is not, and it should never be, something we rely on as truth. What I kind of challenge here is we have a couple of ways this technology is being served to the world. You have a large language model that Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, some of the biggest companies in the world are building. So they've built their own little zip file down here that you can interact with. You're interacting through their software layer. So they're putting it up for you to then ask a question of, call the model, and then get a response. They control everything that happens behind that software layer and their models. So I call this closed AI because there is, in most cases, a private entity sitting between your question and an answer, or your interaction with it and the response it provides you, or the action it takes. We can talk about that a bit, but this is what most people appreciate AI to be right now, whereas there is this whole other world of what is called open source AI. Now, open source has been around forever from a technology perspective. An open source piece of software means you can access it without paying forever, no consequences. Usually there's a community of people that are working to keep it updated and give of their time to contribute to that. So these zip files that Anthropic and OpenAI have made themselves, other people, other big labs, a lot of the Chinese labs, some of these labs and some others, are doing the same exercise, but effectively say, don't worry about the software layer, just have the whole file. You can download it, and if you have enough power on your computer or your phone or wherever you want to interact with, you can do either build your own little software layer, where actually you can talk to it in like a terminal on a desktop, or someone else might have built an open source software layer, plug those together. We don't want to see anything. We don't care from that point. It's all yours to do with what you will. Go for it. This is the state of AI right now. So 2 different ways of providing access to large language models to the world. And so I looked at this. So I used ChatGPT for the first time maybe a month after it came out. I sat down, typed something in, got a response. I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Being a curious human, I tried to push its boundaries, try to see what it could do, what it couldn't do, and quickly realized this is literally about to change the entirety of human history. Reorienting almost everything I was doing from that point in time around the growth curve that I saw this going on. Now, back then, this was OpenAI, ChatGPT, their software layer, me talking to the tool. I looked at that from the lens of someone who's supporting businesses, running businesses, and thought, if that is how this thing grows, every business is going to have to trust that the private entity providing this technology to them is going to do the right thing by them once it infiltrates their business, because it wants to help you. But in reality, you're feeding it data, which is the most valuable commodity in the world right now. And so I looked at that at the time and thought, is there another path? Realized the open source thing was happening alongside it and was building as it kind of could back then. It was still probably a year behind the best in market models. And thought about how if we go down this journey of a concentrated few providing access to superintelligence in a business sense, we can talk about the personal sense separately, but in a business sense, and 50%, 70% of businesses on Earth are like, yeah, no worries, we'll start using your products for cheap or free. That's a crazy consolidation of power, ultimately. It's also a massive exposure of what makes business valuable. IP, unique ways of working, all this sort of stuff. It's potentially a massive exposure of data, personal information, all the sorts of health, financial data, etc. And so we looked at that and we were like, holy shit, this is hectic if it evolves the way we think it evolves. Can we support organizations, businesses, enterprise with leveraging open source models? And so when we first began, the answer was yes, but it's really hard because the models aren't as good and you need to pay for the hardware, the GPUs. This is why NVIDIA is so valuable. They provide the GPU to do that maths once you ask a question of the file. And so that was a big investment for anybody who's looking over here and going, yeah, but it cost me $20 a month to access ChatGPT. And so we were, what are we now, 2-ish years into this journey where we built kind of our own software layer above open source models that we felt was going to work really well for businesses. But the market has no interest because the market hasn't had an impact yet of what it means to not have sovereignty around this technology. I've been rabbiting on forever, done a bunch of podcasts, write for days about this, because I see the inevitable outcome that I say inevitable. I honestly, I truly believe it's inevitable, that centralized power impacts people, businesses, humanity's trajectory in some way. But I know there is another way for us to and I think personally, everybody should have access to what these things can do, even if it means a complete disruption to our economic landscape and society as we know it. Because the opposite side of that argument is no one gets it or only a few people get it, right? And this very morning, right, that we are talking, the US government just told a private company, Anthropic, to disable, effectively, its most powerful large language models because of the threat that they present to national security. So we have just seen a democratic nation and a private company that is existing in that democratic nation be told that it should not provide that technology to anyone outside of that nation, which is impossible because VPNs exist. So effectively being told what you've just released to the market, I think it was like inside a week ago, take this as you will. We can't control, we can't influence, presents too much risks to us, so therefore turn it off. So Anthropic did so. They've disabled it. Last night I was using this tool, this large language model within their software layer. It is truly light years ahead of anything that's in the market at the moment. And then this morning I woke up and I couldn't access it anymore. All these businesses over here that we've been talking to for ages, people that have been listening to me and the way I talk, if they don't have this realization now about the threat to their futures once they start relying on these technologies, I'd be blown away, but most of them still probably will. Because yes, they've taken Fable and Mythos offline, but Opus, which is their next most capable model, is still sitting there. You can still use it. You can still pay your $20 a month. So this is like, for me, probably now my purpose. Yeah, like I've pursued different things from a passion perspective and from an interest perspective, but I now feel like such a purpose around what the future of like the world looks like as it relates to effectively what's being framed as super intelligence, because I feel like it can unlock creativity and curiosity and all these other things that are available to, well, should be available to all humans, like we've never imagined. But at the same time, that's such a threat to how we live, because so many of us are defined by and hold our purpose in the 9 to 5, in the comfort, in the routine. And I get it. I get this is how society is currently framed, but the cat's out of the bag, right? It's never getting put away. You will, I guarantee, have the Chinese models catching what Fable and Mythos can do sooner rather than later. And they are giving every one of them to the world for free, which seems fascinating coming out of a communist country, but you know, let's not get into geopolitics. And so we kind of sit here comfortably chatting. Like I couldn't tell you what 3 years from now the world looks like. I challenge anybody to. And I think we are in a big kind of hype cycle around AI. I think the market's overvalued. I think a crash is inevitable, all these sorts of things. But this tech persists. Like it is here. I've got models that run on my phone, my computer at home that will never be turned off as long as I have power to run them. And so I just kind of sit here and go, this is the next industrial revolution, but at a scale people don't kind of fathom.
Yeah.
And I think the reason people don't fathom it is because they don't have this curiosity turned on. They don't have this creativity attached to how they're using it. They just think it's Google. And they get pissed off when it can't rewrite the email that they want rewritten in a certain way. And so maybe it all fizzles out. Maybe it all goes away. Maybe it just becomes like a part of software moving forward and the world keeps turning the way it is. But I actually think it's a crazy tool that could unlock phenomenal potential for humans forever.
I agree. I think it's more powerful than people think. Less magical than they believe. But they're definitely more powerful. I know this comparison's been overused when they compare it to the early days of the internet. And I think we've spoken about this, where if somebody could have gone back to the early days before it went mainstream and explained to our parents' generation that one day you're going to be able to open and close a bank account without stepping a foot into a branch and never dealing with a teller. You will be able to do it. It changed the entire consumer experience. It dismantled, disrupted legacy systems that have existed for decades. But nobody really sat down and explained it to people. Meaning, like you're talking about, why don't everyday people see this? And I think it is because no one's actually said, like you were talking about the creativity and stuff like that. It's like you have to imagine the endless possibilities. We're talking about all these things. There are things that, I mean, do you have an idea of things that we haven't even thought of? Because whether you people agree with it or not, it is here. It will be embedded in almost every aspect of our lives. I don't know that many people who are equipped or skilled enough to go out, live in the bush off the land. I certainly am not. I am a sucker for convenience and comforts.
Yeah.
But how do I integrate that into my life? Do you have any, I suppose, theories on what areas this will impact us that we haven't even thought of yet?
So probably medical is the most significant. I think clearly, thanks to my decisions during COVID, I'm not a massive fan of the pharmaceutical industries. But I think we will have a disruption to the appreciation of health and ideally and hopefully access to what it means to be healthy in a way that was never possible, because the veil, the propaganda, the whatever you want to call it, that sits around the definition of healthcare in the modern world is really being challenged right now. And it's being challenged, I think, because, and probably in the last couple of years, you've got this kind of capacity to bring another brain to every thought as it relates to solving a problem. And so there was a guy in Sydney who made his own vaccine for his dog's cancer and cured it a couple of months ago using the open source model that Google created around gene therapies, AlphaFold. So they made that and gave it to the world for free. So he had enough compute power at home, enough GPUs in a computer to use that model and a few other tools. Yes, he has like a computer science degree, but he talked about the fact that AI, like large language models, really contributed significantly to him going down a rabbit hole to see if he can figure out a solution to this. And so say what you want about why cancer, dementia, any of these things exist right now. What this tool presents is insane iteration around the potential for a solution to those. But then at the same time, insane iteration about the value of the things we've been told aren't good for us, shouldn't be used by us, shouldn't be done. And then the elevation, hopefully, of this kind of like opportunity for humans to be, I mean, I'm not going to say superhuman and exist forever, but that's a path, like this kind of, this pursuit of longevity, I think, is accelerated massively by the technology and challenges the main constructs of healthcare and medicine pretty soon. So that's probably one example. I think our economic landscape is about to be significantly challenged in a way people probably can't comprehend. I think what the US have done today will have a flow-on effect through the Western world. And I've talked about this a lot in both podcasts and writing, and to whoever will listen for a long time. The reaction by modern government will be to ban, regulate, try to control, because the system that they currently govern requires human labor. And so the arguments by Elon and his mates that the robots are coming, that the technology is capable. You listen to Dario Amodei, who's the head of Anthropic, talk about like the white collar labor force. I 100% appreciate those perspectives that they hold, because in the role that I can play as a consultant, or in the role I can play as a user of this technology, you can create a software solution to a problem that takes somebody hours and hours and hours a week in a couple of hours of your time, with that creativity, with that understanding of the tools, and with their kind of their power. You then, yes,
Which you guys have proven with Howll AI.
Well, it's
taken a task.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's an example of the evolution of what we've built as a product, where but here's where I think this challenges everything. We've always done things a certain way, even in a business sense. It's not really different. Sales to receipt, purchase to payment. When you run an organization, service, product, transaction at the end of it. A lot of what happens in the background we feel is unique, but in reality it's not. You just got a different system, a different software, a different spreadsheet facilitating the process. The exponential rise in the capabilities of large language models is most challenging to those processes. And the only barrier between things changing are the people sitting in those processes. So your comment about kind of the job market and people's kind of losing jobs and stuff, it is already happening. the decision that that leader of a business needs to make, empathetic or otherwise, is about to almost be inevitably a negative impact to humans as a result of this tech. I sat down at an event last night. A guy was like, yeah, my buddy's the head of a technology company. He had 40 developers 12 months ago. He's now got 20. We're having a drink this week, and he told me he reckons it'll be 9 by the end of the year, with no change to revenue, with no change to traction on their trajectory. And that's a business here in Western Australia that is doing well, valued at over 100 million bucks probably. And this guy's like, I understand the technology, I understand the potential, I understand the opportunity that I hold sitting here. The only people that will stay in that business are the highest agency ones able to use these tools creatively to drive outcomes that give value to whoever the customer is of that business. Anybody out there who sits there and is in a data entry, data movement, reporting, like, these roles are so challenged right now. And I say this and it like often gives me shivers because this is the challenge facing humans. And so when the regulation comes, when the mandate to not use it comes, most people will support that because it is going to challenge their very existence. It's going to be the COVID piece again, where it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, I can't do my job because it doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, people talk about, prior industrial revolutions and the horse to the tractor to the car to all this sort of stuff. And I think, there will be, and we need to go through some sort of depression type activity or time frame broadly to come out the other side. Yeah. And so for me, probably right now, my challenge to people is like, you've either got to be one of those that are in the, I'm going to be looked after and hopefully protected by my government or the broader society, or you need to be in the camp of like, holy shit, I have some agency. What can I do to ensure that I'm going to thrive as a result of what's coming? Because it's here.
The choice has to be made.
You've got a personal decision.
Leverage your convenience.
Correct. My one that I do with my kids, are you a creator or are you consuming? Right?
100%.
Are you a creator or are you consuming? We've built our own little game studio now that anyone can play on the internet because they would play like little games on their 2 hours of iPad time on a Friday afternoon. And I'm looking at all these games and I'm like, that one's full of ads. That one's got some weird shit going on in it. Like, what are you guys playing? Oh, we love this bit. We love that. All right, cool. So we would sit down with Claude. I'd get the kids to talk to. I don't really type much. I talk now, right? Typing's hilarious if you ask my kids. They're like, why the fuck am I learning to type? I can just talk to this thing and it does it faster. Oh, yeah, good point. So you get them to tell you what the game is, then you chuck it into Claude, it builds the game, they go play it within half an hour, then they come back. I don't like this bit. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. Tell Claude, oh, that's right. Okay, all fixed. Cool.
Problem solving in real time.
Real-time creativity, like it's a tool. Yeah, like it's a tool. They're still drawing and creating and doing all those typical things in the world around them, but they only ever consider these things right now as tools to help them accelerate to outcomes. And usually for me, and this is why for me, AI, I always talk about it as actually like intelligence amplification. The amplification of human intelligence is what's possible with these tools. It's not artificial intelligence that should replace our ability to think, our curiosity, yeah. And so for the kids, I'm so conscious of that. Right? I'm so conscious of showing them what it can do, how it has an impact, what it's capable of, but at the same time, I want them to remain in control, the human in the loop piece, right? In a personal sense, in a business sense, in the way we're deploying that software that sits above these models, humans are still important and required. And I hope, and I hold hope, that we unlock that curiosity and creativity in people in some way. This is where we talk about universal basic income and all these other things that are going to be thrown around in the coming years because of this disruption. And ultimately, it's funny, like I think my first Substack thing I ever wrote was about utopia or dystopia. And it's because at the moment it feels like they're our two choices. They're the two paths that we're going to head down. And I'm guarantee you, if you drop yourself 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago, whenever it was that these massive shifts were happening in our world, that a lot of people felt that was the inevitable of two outcomes. And in reality, it's like somewhere in the middle, right? We just traverse something that then will get us to wherever we are. But right now, I don't think any modern human could actually comfortably explain what that looks like
No.
3, 5, 10, 50 years from now.
We speak about industrial revolutions and disruption. We forget about telegraph operators.
Yeah.
Everybody thought they were out of jobs.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're working for the military,
Yeah.
Morse code and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I like what you said there, because it comes back to another one of your quotes about outsourcing curiosity. It's the landscape is definitely changing.
Mm.
And like you just said, people will have to make a choice, and it's not dystopian or utopian. It could be something in the middle.
Yeah.
It could be some bastardized version of what we don't know what it looks like.
Mm.
Anyone who claims they do, well, you're a liar. But for sure, you're doing yourself a disservice by not at least learning about it,
Mm.
just to some capacity.
Yeah, and this is what I tell most people. If I get told by someone they're not using these tools yet, the first thing I do is start. Literally, that's it. The only thing I want you to do is to open one up and start interacting with it in some way. Because if you don't, you will be left behind. And at a minimum, you just won't be able to hold a perspective that is what's now interacting with you as opposed to a human, right? I have one on my phone right now, which is available 24/7 in my texts. So it literally talks to me through text messages, but it's just a large language model. And so it weirdly feels like I'm just talking to a mate, because over time it learns how I interact with it. And so the movie Her, which was a famous movie about interacting with intelligence and falling in love with it and all this sort of stuff, that's what's now being offered to the market. And so these, just the landscape of scams, romance scams, all this sort of stuff is just going to amplify, because people don't understand what's sitting behind the world they're interacting with. So at a minimum, I'm just go interact with this stuff so you can try to grasp in your head what the heck it is and how someone else might use it.
Would you encourage parents, especially, how do you prepare your child for this world that is coming, that is here? Are there any sort of just rough guidelines you could just throw out there, moms and dads, saying, hey, whether you want your child exposed to this stuff or not, in some way they will be, because you're not around them 24/7. So
yeah. So our government banned social media for kids under 16, failed miserably, as it was always going to. I have banned social media for kids under 16 in my household. They're not getting a phone. They're not getting access to any of that shit, because I am so aware of how somebody with opposite intentions to me, or slightly one side or another, can impact the human I'm raising in phenomenally negative ways for their gain through that technology. So the first thing for me is I always chaperone the use of it in my household, am acutely aware of anything my kids interact with in a digital realm, have trained them to be extremely transparent and honest about what they see, where they see it, what it did to them, all those sorts of things when it comes to the digital landscape. And it is not banned at all. It is just monitored and chaperoned. They have their 2 hours of iPad time on a Friday. We have family movies occasionally. I think we were watching something on free-to-air TV maybe 6 months ago for the first time, maybe a sports thing or something. And they were both like, what is all this? When the ads start playing? Amy was like, this is so odd. I'm like, yeah, this is what an ad is. And I realized they have almost never been exposed to advertising, in a sense that they look at it and they're like, this is the stupidest thing. How does this work? And so they have this reaction because it's unfamiliar, but then at the same time, I've explained to them what that is. What is an ad? What is it literally trying to do? It is manipulation of your mind to extract some sort of value from you for somebody else. And so they're 7 and 9, and they know this. And so when it comes to AI, it's the interaction with curiosity as opposed to consumption, basically. And so we're at a point now where if Amy comes and asks me a question, I'm like, you can just ask Grok, because it's just there and I'm comfortable with you using it as long as I'm around. She's like, oh yeah, but I don't need to. I want to learn this myself. I'm like, awesome. We're doing well. because she knows the tools available, but she doesn't want to take the shortcut, right? And so there's this kind of need for a conversation, but I think it's a conversation beyond freedom for a kid, because they just can't handle the world. And so my view on how we raise a kid, let them use this stuff, is attach it to curiosity, explain its power, work with them in its use, but giving them access to it or to anything that like effectively weaponizes it is going to be insanely detrimental.
Which then would require the mom and dad to learn the tools.
You got to know what it is.
Yeah, you have to understand what you're giving your child, or else how are you going to know what guardrails to put in place?
What's the most common thing I get asked by people or sent by somebody digitally? Is this real? Adults. Is this real? Is this AI? The most common question I get asked. I'll get sent things from people like, oh, can you believe this is happening? I'm like, mate, that's fake. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's fake. Here's why, here's the reasons. And it already happens to like adult humans, right? Imagine what that does to like kids have fucking phones in Amy's year at school and they're like 9 and 10 years old. Like it's insane, but this is normal now, right? So that exposure to things that my belief, right? The preservation of innocence in a child is your task, your sole task in life as an adult, a parent, you know? It's why, anyone that does anything to a child, pedos, all these, like, that is literally destruction of the future of that being. And so the allowance of us to give our kid access unrestricted to technology is the most insane thing I think a human can do. It's nuts. But it is the norm, right? And so you are the bad guy. Katie's best mate, they haven't allowed their daughter to go on Snapchat or any of these sorts of things. I think she's almost 15. And they've navigated that period of, I hate you, you're the worst, because she was the only one in her friend group, 12, 13, 14, going to a private school and everything, where you think, some people have awareness of this shit, the only one. And so you feel empathy because they're isolated, they're not one of the crowd, they're not seeing the things. And so everyone else is like, oh, you're an idiot, it's fine, it's going to be okay. And then we have like this crazed prevalence of gender dysmorphia and depression and all this insanity going on around the world that you really can only ever argue comes from access to this information, because that's not what they're being told at home most of the time. Most of the time, it's not what they're being told at school. Like, that has to be coming from somewhere.
You've spoken about you as a parent. And I told you about the Substack, I became a fan. And you dropped something really cool the other day about a conversation you had with your dad, and you spoke about parents' time fleeting. When I read that post, though, you said you had this deep conversation with the old man about aliens, the moon landing, religion, and all this stuff. And I sat back and I was like, what a healthy relationship. But I also got a bit sad, because the reality is the majority of people do not have a relationship like this with their parents for whatever reason. Has it always been like this between you and your old man, or?
No, probably not. I think not at that level. So I am a young version of him. He, in his business life, was always extremely charismatic, confident, capable, great orator, huge champion of others, and almost always for no want of anything in return. And so my business journey piggybacked on his network for a good 10 years. He was the reason I entered the white collar workforce, because he put me in touch with his mate Rob, who ran a little IT consultancy, and that's how I got the first gig and snowball. To this day, I'll see someone and they go, how's your dad? Like, half the time I'm like, oh shit, I forgot that's how we met, because it's every other person. And so he and I had probably more of a relationship in that world than we did personally. He is a strong and devout Catholic man. And so when I I mean, I'm not Catholic anymore. When I deviated from the religion, shall we say, there was, I mean, me and my mum are hilarious, and we always have great conversations about this because she's still a very devout Catholic woman. But there's probably this kind of like, oh, they're not going to be able to think like I think about things around the world sort of thing, and people on this journey. But again, most of my family members made a similar decision to me during COVID. And so that kind of exposed a lot of conversations that were never had before in our household. And then on the back of that, people start thinking a little differently about other things. I've done, psilocybin in my life more as a to kind of appreciate what else is around us. I haven't really done many other drugs, but that was like a foundational sort of moment in my journey as a human being. And so then, being able to talk now about those sorts of activities with your parents, with your siblings, with your partner is like phenomenal. And we're at a point with, I guess, in our family that is just like normal conversation. And it's
so it's just the whole lot of you are just having these great, healthy, open conversations.
So healthy is a great word because some might think they're not, some might. We're very like accepting of each other's perspectives, but I think obviously because Dad's got a terminal disease in Parkinson's now. I think he's a bit more like, yeah, cool, I'll talk about shit. We'll explore some stuff. He's doing very alternative therapy to the norm when it comes to tackling that disease. My mum's always been different in her thinking about the world around us. She's, been right ahead of most people, but never listened to by most people, but also isn't someone who shares to convince somebody. She will share if she's given the opportunity and share very strongly what she thinks. And then my brother is like, my brother is my brother. And then both my sisters are, very accepting of sort of other people's views and thoughts and thinking. But I mean, to answer your question, if all the Hornemans get together in a room, like our direct family, it's loud. And so anyone that isn't a born Horneman usually is challenged. So like my wife, like everyone else is like, fuck you guys, just go at it and and that's it. That's how it is. And so it is phenomenally healthy in that sense. And we'll all share what we think and tell each other that the other person doesn't know what they're talking about and love each other out the other side of it. And that's probably like the most valuable thing for us that we can show our kids and the environment we bring them into.
Don't outsource your curiosity, don't outsource your happiness. It's just right there.
Yeah, it's just there.
Do you think has your relationship with your father evolved? And I don't mean in terms of, obviously you guys all love each other, but as a father yourself, having your own experiences and your own sort of built your own set of principles, way of life, your own creed, has it graduated from a father and son relationship to maybe something more like on a peer level?
Yeah, 100%.
Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah, 100%. Like I was thinking about this the other day actually. I was driving along and I'll probably get emotional here. We call each other to just check in. And I think that's probably the only person that I really do that with. Like, how you going? What are you up to? And so I'm acutely aware that's not forever. And so that presents like a challenge to the future because we are almost at, like you say, like a level where we're peers and capable of that sort of check-in activity, probably because we are both and have been really capable humans that others turn to. And so we've never really had the need or maybe felt we should consult with others. And so we definitely have built that ability between the two of us to just check in and to be, really honest with where we're at and how we're feeling in a way that I'm very fortunate to have through that sort of person in my life, which I know a lot of people don't have. So yeah, it's an interesting one to kind of to sit with because it isn't forever.
No. The fleeting comment was, I suppose, with the Parkinson's, do you feel grateful that two people were so similar, we've always been the rock that other people rely on, in the time when you probably need it the most, you can be that friend?
100%.
And I suppose the other way too, knowing that all this time, you spoke about this early on during our chat about squandered time. And now the laughs and the cries in a house full of Hornemans, with the kids watching. And it just hammers home, who gives a shit what anybody thinks?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to remember any of this. I'm going to remember
Mm.
the banter, the love, the abuse of love, throwing at each other. And
Yep.
With the old man, are you glad it's gotten to the stage where you've evolved past Spider and
100%.
and become a peer?
100%.
Because to be able to be that support for him, it couldn't have been done as a son, and it has to be done as a...
Yeah, correct. And I think, you're always their son. You're always going to be that. And I think this is kind of this evolution of manhood and responsibility. And so I think for me, the lack of that in so many modern men detests me. The fact that they can't hold that responsibility and they won't provide often that care for, their own parent. They make whatever excuse for the care of their own kids, for their partner, all this sort of stuff. And I think it's this kind of like evolution of you as a man and this appreciation that it's literally inevitable that you're going to find yourself in this position if you hold that responsibility as you grow, whether you are married, have kids, all that sort of stuff, whether your parents, you're fortunate to have them still with you or not, you're going to have to step up and appreciate and accept that responsibility and often the burden that it brings you. And I think for me, like my mum's she's only got one sister, right? So then their responsibility was kind of shared with their parents and had been for a lot of their life. Whereas for me, like I know both and all of my siblings will contribute as, my dad ages and we go through that journey, and mum does as best she can as well, obviously. But yeah, I definitely feel that like I will be the kind of closest to him to hopefully be it's all good. Like I got this beyond you being here.
Do you think everything's been leading up to this point?
Yeah, I think so.
The healthy appetite for risk-taking, the car crash, the daring, the audacity to think that you can walk into a boardroom and say, you need to give me this money because this is my vision, has all been leading to this moment where you can say to the old man, I've got this.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think, I am... I am the sum of all the things to this point in time.
Yep.
Yeah, most of us are. Some of us deny some of those things and how they contribute to who we are. But I'm very, very aware that I am the sum of all these things. And I'm also grateful because I have such varied elements in my being from both my parents. And the upbringing that they provided us and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting to think about it in that way. Like you're kind of getting to this point and it's like, yeah, we got this.
Your father prepared you, you're preparing your kids. Teddy LSD, boxing coach.
Mm-hmm.
He said something about boxing being the great equalizer.
Mm.
That on any given night, anyone from any background, if they trained hard enough and sacrificed enough, no matter where they were from, could step into a ring on any given night and make the world fair again.
Mm.
We've spoken about all the things that are that are necessary. We've often heard things like high agency, rhetoric and logic, as being part of liberal arts for the world. What three traits do you think, or any traits do you believe are very necessary today for everybody who's watching this? Like, what do you need to survive in this world? Not just in terms of AI, in terms of culture and where everything's heading.
Well, I mean, curiosity for me is a given. Like, that's something that I literally challenge every human on earth to explore. I'm going to say empathy, but I'm not going to say it from the perspective of not to lean into it, but to be considerate of others and their circumstance. I think a lot of people today, just forget that other people are leading lives and that they've got shit going on, they've got challenges, they've got reasons, whilst we are, and we should probably be very focused right now on us and ours and the responsibility we hold, we should still always do so with this like empathy for others around us, whether it's like, put your fucking trolley back at the shops, right? Like that for me is what I mean by empathy. Like, it's just a kind of considerate perspective of others. So yeah, curiosity and empathy. I think for me, like, Stoicism is probably like the kind of stoic approach to moving forward with life, as opposed to being stuck or trapped or whatever, being consumed by what was, thinking you are more valuable than anything. Like, the only book I read and try to read once a year is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, like his journal, because you have a challenge to why does any of this matter? And you kind of sit there and go, oh fuck, it doesn't really. And so then you get to go, well, what does matter? What is the impact I can have? And for me, as a parent, as a husband, as a sibling, as a son, that is the thing that really sits above all else. And then you look at like the business world and all that sort of stuff, and like, yeah, they're not problems. That's fleeting moments in time. Why get hung up on them? You look at being cancelled or wanting to put out your first video and thinking someone's going to hate you or think something other than of you, like, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And so for me, that kind of, probably the package of those things is the reason that I am who I am today, and that I'm capable of being the generalist, not being educated for anything that I'm able to do, and probably, I would believe, still living and leading a life that's really kind of grounded from the perspective of like holding on to my moral compass and not letting go of that because I have a consciousness around the impact of my actions on those around me. And so, yeah, probably those three things.
Curiosity, empathy, stoicism.
Yeah. Probably a strange combination.
A good combination.
Yeah, man.
Josh Horneman, thank you very much for being my very first guest on
Hey, bro, I massively appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed it, man.
It's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Every podcast or an interviewer, they had this signature sign-off.
Okay.
I've been thinking of mine all week. Like, what do I do to make it mine?
Wrap it up.
And I came up with this.
Yep.
If you're keen, I want to ask you a question and give you two options.
Okay.
But you cannot explain the reason you chose one. You just have to choose one.
Okay.
And for dramatic effect, I'm probably just going to cut the camera off as soon as you answer this, yeah?
Let's go.
If you had to pick a memory for Amy and Wesley to remember you by, would you want it to be the man who taught them how to be curious, how to be empathetic, how to be stoic, and this just gave them this world of opportunity and possibilities? Or would you rather be the father who made them feel loved and safe?
Loved and safe.